There's something primal about mist-covered hills, isn't there? They seem to reach out from another time, whispering secrets and cloaking hidden dangers. But what if I told you that in the English countryside, there's one such place not just steeped in mystery, but host to a malevolent shadow, a phantom that has left a trail of terror unlike anything you've heard before? Let me take you to Marley Crag, a desolate stretch of hills in Northumberland, notorious for a sinister presence that has spanned generations. Welcome to the Nightside Archive. In today's episode, we delve into the story of the Mists of Marley Crag, England's sinister phantom. Marley Crag is an ancient wild place known for rugged cliffs and a mist so thick it feels alive. Locals say it drinks in sound, as if devouring voices and footsteps alike. Farmers and hikers have long exchanged whispered warnings about venturing too far into its embrace, especially after sundown. That's because those who do often don't come back the same, if they come back at all. The most infamous tale attributed to Marley Crag begins in 1846 with a boy, 13-year-old Henry Cade, the rebellious son of a shepherd. Determined to prove to his friends he wasn't afraid of the looming hills, young Henry dared the unthinkable. He trekked into the mist on a chilly October evening after his father warned him to stay clear. The boy didn't just wander through the hills. He entered a particular spot the old folk called the Devil's Cleft, a narrow ravine-like feature cloaked in darkness even in daylight. What happened next turned local folklore into something much darker. Henry returned home hours later, pale and trembling, clutching his left arm tightly against his chest. He spoke nonsensically of the shadow with no eyes and of freezing hands grasping his shoulder. That winter, Henry fell gravely ill. His mother would later claim strange patterns of frost appeared on the windows by his bed, even when there was no frost in the air. After weeks of fever and fits, the boy passed away. His final words, "It watches." Before long, people began to swear that an inexplicable shadow would follow them, just beyond their peripheral vision, if they wandered too close to the Devil's Cleft. Dogs growled at nothing. Livestock refused to cross certain pathways, and the uncanny feeling of being watched took on an oppressive heaviness. By the late 19th century, this could have faded into mere legend if it weren't for the string of disappearances that began to plague the area. In 1898, two young sisters, Emma and Lila Hartwell, vanished while crossing Marley Crag to visit a neighbor. Search parties scoured the hills for days, but no trace of them was ever found. Some reported finding their scarves snagged on the twisted trees leading toward the cleft. Others spotted what they described as strange, drag-like markings in the earth. But it rained hard the following days, washing away any evidence. A cryptic letter written by the girl's mother years later still haunts inquiries into the mystery. In it, she wrote, "I saw the dark one across the mist that morning. Its shape moved like it shouldn't, like it didn't belong." That cryptic testimony transformed the story of Marley Crag from feared superstition into something whispered only after a good drink. Some say it's not just a phantom haunting the hills, but something older, a presence tied to tragic deaths and grief. Older records speak of an unnamed plague village, wiped out centuries earlier, where the dead were abandoned in fear of contamination. One theory posits that the malice of those souls left unburied clung to the crag like dew. The 20th century brought about a scientific age, and with it, skeptics ready to dismiss old tales. Yet Marley Crag failed to give up its reputation. In the summer of 1972, two university students, Amy Grant and Peter Cole, decided they'd debunk the legend once and for all. Equipped with cameras and tape recorders, they aim to capture evidence, any evidence, that the fears surrounding Marley Crag were baseless. By noon of their first day, they had heard, them's their words, unexplained footsteps crunching behind them on the rocky paths. By nightfall, their tape recorder picked up faint whispers, too faint to make out words, yet chillingly human in tone. The next morning, something even stranger happened. The photographs they had carefully taken revealed streaks of white misted forms, marred by what appeared to be claw marks, utterly out of context with the scenery. Peter wrote in a journal about feeling an ominous pressure, describing it as though a crowd were silently surrounding them just beyond the edge of visibility. They abandoned the investigation days ahead of schedule. Amy developed chronic nightmares for years afterward and refused to speak about what she had experienced. Her partner, Peter, continued to research paranormal phenomena, but never returned to Marley Crag. Recent sightings haven't lessened the air of fear around the hills. In 2014, drone footage taken by an amateur landscape photographer went viral when it appeared to capture a figure lurking suspiciously near the Devil's Cleft. Swarms of internet sleuths tried to debunk it, some calling it a trick of the mist or an animal caught in motion blur, but others swore it was humanoid, long-limbed and impossibly thin. The figure resembled the descriptions from local lore. What causes this enduring legacy of fear and death? Some speculate ley lines, a network of energy pathways theorized by ancient cultures, converge near the Devil's Cleft, amplifying psychic phenomena. Others turn to geomagnetic anomalies that supposedly mess with human perception. Whatever the explanation, you won't find many locals willing to test it. Perhaps the most startling account came recently, in 2022, when a group of experienced paranormal investigators decided to camp at Marley Crag. Equipped with the latest thermal imaging tech, they believed they could capture whatever haunted the cursed site once and for all. Their live-streamed sessions gained millions of views, but abruptly came to an end on their third night at the site. Their leader, Marcus Lane, was visibly shaken, insisting they had to leave immediately. In interviews afterward, Marcus described seeing thermal readings of what seemed to be a figure standing mere inches away from his team, despite nobody being there. When asked what it looked like, his response was chilling in its simplicity. It's darker than the shadows. And yet, despite all this, Marley Crag remains as alluring as ever for a certain kind of adventurer. Maybe it's the draw of its unearthly beauty. Maybe it's the irresistible urge to stare into the abyss when it beckons. What everyone agrees upon is that the crag is more than just terrain. It feels alive, almost as if waiting. So, what do you believe? Is Marley Crag home to a centuries-old phantom, a malevolent relic of some darker era? Or could it be an elaborate illusion of the senses, fed by generations of fear? When the mists rise and obscure the hills, one thing remains certain. No one who steps into Marley Crag comes back unchanged. Thank you for joining us on this dive into the supernatural with the Nightside Archive. If you're brave enough to visit Marley Crag, perhaps keep an eye over your shoulder. After all, the shadows have a habit of following you home. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and always tread lightly into the unknown.